mile deliveries for rural e-commerce, challenges and proposed solutions. We would like to begin by thanking you all for being a part of Logistics Tech Conference 2021. We would like to thank our title partner here, Technologies, supported by Logistics Skill Council, powered by partner Pando Corporation, brought to you by Grey Orange. Without further ado, it is my pleasure to introduce you to Mr. Harshvardhan Sharma, Head Automotive Retail Practice, Automotive Industry Consulting Group, NRI Consulting and Solutions India, who will be moderating today's discussion. Joining us today, we have a distinguished set of leaders. Please welcome Ms. Sulaizah Saptoe, Head of APAC Product Marketing, Transport and Logistics Here Technologies, Mr. Manish Kelkar, the Director, ERP and SCM Cloud Competency, Oracle India, Mr. Shreyas Joshi, VP and General Manager, Meesho, Mr. Anil Chhikara, the Founder, CEO, Bluebolt Electric and Founder Chairman, Startup India Foundation, Mr. Ramkesh Jangra, Head of Supply Chain, SCC Ericsson. I would request all the delegates to keep posting their questions in the chat box and the panel will address a selected few at the end. Over to you, Mr. Sharma.
Thank you so much, Swati. A warm welcome to all the viewers and attendees, and a privilege to be here amongst you all. Joining me is a very eclectic panel of experts on the area pertinent for today's discussion, which is strengthening last mile deliveries for rural e-commerce and challenges and proposed solutions. So before we begin the session, I would just very quickly request a quick introduction from the attendees, and then we can begin with the session, starting with Mr. Anil Chhikara. Over to you, please. Not able to hear you in case you are.
I was mute. Okay. So this is Anil Chhikara. So I set up Bluebolt Electric, which is a last mile and a first mile B2B EV-based logistics solution provider. We work with last mile, we work with FMCG companies to set up their hubs where they can manage their entire distribution from wholesaler to retailer to whatever within a city. And in rural first mile logistics, we are setting up a model of a micro entrepreneurship where rural micro entrepreneurs using electric vehicles more on the logistics side can not just solve the problem of logistics in rural, but also a bit of unemployment that has come after COVID. So that's what I do.
Thank you. Moving on to Mr. Kelkar.
Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. My name is Manish Kelkar. I have been working with Oracle for more than a decade now, helping customers plan and embark on their supply chain journeys to achieve their ultimate professional goals in their organizations. Happy to join this session. Thank you, IAMI, for this, and glad to take any questions and share my experience in the next 40 minutes. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Jangra, please.
Hello, everyone. This is Ramkesh Jangra. I'm working with Ericsson and based out at Gurugram. I born and brought up in a village of Haryana. Can easily understand the challenge and reality of the e-commerce of rural area, and having around 20 years of experience with the multinationals. Yeah.
Thank you. Mr. Joshi.
Thanks, Harsh. Hello, everyone. I'm Shreyas Joshi. I work with Meesho as the VP and General Manager for our Fulfillment and Experience function. Meesho is the leader in social e-commerce in this country. And as such, we have a fairly significant skew towards tier 3, tier 4 and rural geographies. In the interest of serving these audiences, rural e-commerce is an area that is very close to our hearts. And I hope to learn a lot from the folks on the panel as much as everyone else around. Thank you.
Thank you. Moving on to Ms. Saptoe.
Good afternoon, everyone. So my name is Sulaizah Saptoe. I'm based in Singapore. I'm the head of APAC Product Marketing for Transport and Logistics. So what here Technologies does is we are a location data and technology platform company. We have a global presence for the past 3.5 decades. We help a lot of our customers understand and try to model a world that's always moving and changing, because we produce something what we call a digital representation of reality. Because it's not just a map, something more than what we would conventionally think of as a map. And this representation of reality is the basis for us and our customers to understand how people, places, and things connect together. And I'm more than happy to share and discuss and definitely learn with all these esteemed panelists here what we can do more for our logistics and supply chain.
Thank you. So moving on to the topic of the day, the last mile delivery challenges. So when we talk about e-commerce in isolation, when we talk about rural in isolation, and we talk about logistics in isolation, these are independent streams which itself have their inherent opportunities and challenges. And if we were to combine them, then there's a compounding effect in terms of the operational prowess required to turn this around. And therefore, what kind of operational responsiveness is required is quite unique for India. So as we understand, there are about 19,000 odd pin codes, about 17,000 odd good pin codes. And at any moment of time, there is an immense pressure across the e-commerce players, their logistics providers, merchandisers, sellers, so on and so forth. However, in terms of e-commerce particularly, the proof is in the pudding. The moment of truth is when someone in rural India orders a package, and you've set up a great catalog, you've set up immensely well marketing campaigns. However, if there is a delay, or if there is some fraud, or there is disruption, that's where the customer experience journey sort of drops. And probably we might want to talk about how your organization has been seeing it. So just to rephrase that question, what are some of the last mile delivery challenges that, as per you, exist in rural e-commerce space, and how is your organization trying to solve them? So just taking thoughts from Mr. Chhikara here. Any thoughts pertinent to this, Mr. Chhikara? Sorry to interrupt. I think we might want to unmute this.
Yeah. Sorry about that, man.
No problem.
So, see, the challenge is not just in delivery, but also because, see, agri is a big source now for first mile, and that's also kind of shifting to e-commerce. The number of agri-tech startups, the number of startups who are either, like Licious, which is doing on the seafood meat, or Atom a Day in Bangalore, which has farms, their own farms about 30 kilometers away. And a lot of these guys, so there are a lot of startups who are working from getting the traffic on both sides. So first is the last mile thing, and obviously I will not talk about the same thing, that COD issue and all the drama that happens. So what we are doing is that imagine a village. Now, if you look at from the government side, the biggest challenge in agri is whether it's first mile, you treat that as a first mile or last mile, is the wastage that happens. But if you look at it, I was reading this some McKinsey report, and they said India will need another 400 million metric tons of food by 2025. On the other side, almost 30 to 40%, which is almost like 167 metric tons, is being wasted. So imagine that. And if you look at that, why it is wasted, some of that is storage, some of that is logistics. But if you see the proportion, I think logistics is where the most wastage happens. And that is where, because there are no efficient, cold chains there, or or even if the cold chain is there, it's too expensive as compared to the cost of produce. Because somewhere, see, if it's meat and all, or fish or milk products, then it makes sense to invest in cold chain vehicle. But if it's just pure vegetables, they cannot invest themselves. They depend on the public infrastructure. And we have all seen, I'm from Haryana, you go to Azad Mandi and you will see that guys will just load their stuff on the truck and they will sit on top of them and then break. So that is the biggest challenge. So what we are doing is we are saying, imagine envisage a hub in rural area which has solar power on it. There are storage systems there. There are electric vehicles, whether it's a three-wheeler cargo or a two-wheeler or a four-wheeler or whatever. See, we talk this jargon of shared economy a lot in our this thing. But I'm from Haryana. I'm basically a farmer first and a tech guy or sales guy or whatever I am later. Shared economy has worked for hundreds of years in rural. Not everybody has a tractor in their house, but somebody has a tractor and that's available on a per day or whatever with the driver and all that. So there it is perfectly common shared. So we want to work on the government side. The government is saying we need to invest a lot in infrastructure to curtail these losses that are happening in agri. You know, so if you have this center, which is not just providing the logistics service, but also acting as a hub for e-commerce. Because the biggest challenge is that the company can't sell on COD to an individual farmer. The individual farmer doesn't want to go and do online or doesn't know how to do online. So you need a wire media. So this center itself could be the one, okay, you want to buy seeds, here's a special offer, go ahead, give me 50% advance. And when it comes there, he calls him and say, hey, your stuff has come, please take it. So I think, as you said, rather than looking at them as silos, I think time has come where we look at the rural thing both from a first mile and last mile, because unless you mesh them, back them with solar, it will not be very efficient, because you can't have one system just for first mile, one system just for last mile, and everybody kind of working their own thing. I hope that
Thank
makes
you.
sense. Yeah.
Yes, it does. Thank you so much for clarifying that. Just also bringing in Mr. Kelkar from Oracle India. So the challenges in rural, as I said, would be multiplied, because there are infrastructure challenges, lack of trust, and while technology can solve some of these, but largely in terms of Industry 4.0, e-commerce, there would be still, whether it's telematics, IoT. From a rural perspective, how does it pan out, and what's Oracle's view on this? If you could just kindly help us learn a little bit about that, Mr. Kelkar.
Hey, Harshvardhan, thanks. So, to my mind, this possibly the e-commerce, rural e-commerce in India would be the most disruptive technologies that all of us are likely to see in the next decade. And just a couple of statistics which will back this. These are not mine, but publicly available. With a population of 1.3 billion, taking 70% as our rural population, adds to a staggering 900 million people. That is almost 3 times the population of United States
Yeah.
and almost 20 times the population of Great Britain. But with this population, the rural e-commerce contributes less than 1% to the GDP of India. So I see tremendous amount of potential there. Anybody and everybody who has money in their pockets and an idea in their mind want to jump into this space. And we got the pulse of this quite early, like many of our competitors, and embarked on this journey which we call as perfect delivery. And for us, perfect delivery includes the last mile, which is possibly the most challenging and results in 55% of the total cost of the product going into the last mile. But we took a step back and started right from when the customer first ordered their product in whichever shape and form. So for us, a perfect delivery started from the time the customer placed the order till the time the good was delivered, in terms of the total cycle that the customer experienced and how Oracle could benefit. On the specific question, Harshvardhan, that you asked me about IoT, Oracle views IoT as a technology slightly differently than everybody else does. We believe that it is a game changer in terms of creating a platform of collecting information and eventually making use of that for your next decisions. Oracle is not into the commercial IoT, which means the IoT is for the fans and the motors, but we are predominantly and traditionally into manufacturing IoT. Notwithstanding, I would again come back to the challenges faced by the e-commerce industry today and couple of solutions that Oracle is actively working in trying to propagate or mitigate these risks. So, like most of us believe, logistics it possibly may not be the only shortfall in rural e-commerce, but it goes much more in terms of if a customer in rural India is placing an order, does he have the payment mode to place the order to begin with? How much does he trust the product to come to his place? Because the traditional route even today is going to a shop and purchasing something in or in rural India is still a occasion for many households. We have to overcome that resistance, if you will, in terms of popularizing the e-commerce in India. Just one last point on the perfect delivery. As I mentioned to you, right from the order orchestration to the end delivery, we have solutions around order fulfillment. We have solutions around the warehouse bespoke model. We have solutions around the transportation segment and eventually the last mile, which will make the customer happy in terms of what he receives. Harsh?
Understood. Thank you. Quite interesting, and glad to know that that Oracle is trying to fix this problem with this tech prowess, not only from a technology perspective but ecosystem perspective as well. So, Mr. Jangra, just bringing you in here to understand Ericsson's perspective, and you mentioned you are from rural India. So, I think from a user and then from an ecosystem player, if you could just kindly share your comments, would be interesting. I think we might want to unmute. Not able to hear right now.
Thank you, Ars. I think I am audible now. Telecom industry in India is around 20-year-old, or say we can say one generation old. And telecom is spread across India, providing all kind of network till last village of India, whether it is village or quite remote area, you will get connection or you will get network, whether it is of BSNL or say any private player. To provide this kind of network, telecom industry has gone through all kind of challenges which are available for logistics, network installation, and maintenance. And because opportunity was much bigger, then the solution has been founded, and now all kind of problems are noted, and we are having on tips or on numbers. The problem number one, solution number one, problem number 9, then solution number 9. To summarize few challenges or specific challenge of rural part of the country, specifically for e-commerce, one challenge is logistics, high delivery cost, sometimes not feasible delivery, not feasible because of poor or no road there is there, long distance, population is very scattered, and ICT infra is weak. People are not having computers, laptops, or tab or say smartphone. Still, you will find Nokia 1100 phones which are widely available, and people are not using smartphone. And fourth challenge will be payment infra. There is no payment infra or weak infra. Still, people are using barter system or cash. This may be one problem. And next problem may be literacy or ICT skills. People are having these tools, but they're not user savvy. They're even educated people are not knowing how to operate computer and laptops. Then there are very limited purchase power, or as Manish rightly mentioned, still the purchase or say anything buying new is a occasion or festival in rural part of India, and lack of resources for building business. These are the few challenges in rural part of the world. But I agree with Anil also. There is huge opportunity in rural economy. Around 40% of our fruits and vegetables are gets destroyed and still we have a million people across the world who are sleeping hungry every day. If we provide a proper logistic solution, so as we save 40% of fruits and vegetables for the agricultural background, and we provide at economical or say as fair price to the people who are dying hungry every day. And if you see the variance, onion and say take example of onion. In June, onion in country everywhere it's around 10 rupee per kg, and after 3-4 months it's around 40, 50, 60 or 70 per kg. See the variance of price and distance. And when one hand we have wastage, and another hand we have are having hungry people. Still, the opportunities are so big that is constitute large potential market. As Manish told, we are having around 90 crore people in Indian rural backgrounds, and purchasing power in increasing day by day. With the three new law by introduced by central government, they are making rural people more options and more richer. Day by day, it will get impact, and we will see the results after 3 to 4 years. And there are no much retail options in rural India. E-commerce people having bigger opportunity. People are having very limited options of buying products from the shopkeepers. And e-commerce is time saving also. People say, if you talk, if even if I talk about the pharma or the medical service, people because of distance are not going to doctors or hospitals for small illness. They say, let me go tomorrow, day after tomorrow, or when my neighbor will go with the vehicle, I will go along with her. I would prefer not to go for next 1 day or 2 days. If e-commerce is there, then they can order immediately and get their pharma next day or say same day. There's a big opportunity. And it will increase the global market also. There are various organic products which we who are people staying in the metro people are lacking. We are not having trust that what we are eating. This will connect rural India with the metro and the world. E-commerce will deliver the products. Plus, e-commerce can also fetch the organic and fresh products from the market and provide people who are having paymaster like in metro city or global market as well.
Sure. Very interesting perspective, and I agree. I think rural is very underpenetrated, and
Yeah.
more than looking at it as a revenue opportunity, I think from a infrastructure development and a national duty, it's important that essential services are extended in rural areas. So completely on board with that. Just checking in with Shreyas here. So Shreyas, at Meesho, the model has been social e-commerce, which is very unique. And I'm sure the reason why this disruption was required in e-commerce was because the India ecosystem, just like we've seen with economies like China, is very unique. There are still mom and pop stores. There are opinion leaders, and these communities then drive purchases. Rural buyers themselves have different motivations. It's not unlike in urban areas where we are lucky to be in a time where we have 4 hours delivery and everything's available at the drop of a hat. So for rural, the challenges, I'm sure you at the epicenter of e-commerce would be very particular. Do you want to talk us a little bit about Meesho's experience here?
Certainly. So I think there's a couple of points that folks on the panel mentioned, which are actually very relevant. With, I think someone mentioned about the savviness of the audience, and one of the reasons why e-commerce in these areas was unviable is because just finding the right critical mass of consumers who were able to transact online would be a challenge, right? And one of the things that really changed this was the penetration of WhatsApp. One of the key insights behind social commerce is, when some of the early folks at Meesho saw this way of doing business where a lot of suppliers were actually transacting with their buyers on WhatsApp, and they figured that there was something happening here that we could help. That we could really help that process through some technology and take it to the next level, and that's really what social commerce was about and Meesho was about. So I think what social commerce does is, one, it solves that problem of go-to-market, right? You can find a critical mass of buyers in an area where they might not necessarily have access or the ability to use tools that other people are comfortable with using. The second challenge to solve, which is, to some extent we've solved this, but it's a continuous process, is finding ways of making products available that they want and at prices that are sort of, for lack of a better word, unbeatable, right? And that will only happen when e-commerce becomes the lowest cost channel of distribution. And someone else on the panel was alluding to this earlier, that the largest chunk of cost or rather over and above the product cost, the largest chunk of cost is logistics cost, and the largest chunk in that is last mile. And therefore, solving for last mile cost becomes very important in unlocking that demand. So now you've figured the go-to-market. The next level of growth becomes, how do you sort of keep chipping away at this cost and then unlock that demand that you have in rural e-commerce. I think there's a bunch of interesting models that have been tried. I think there's some of the examples we heard on this call before. I started my career with Hindustan Unilever, and we used to have a model called Shakti, and you essentially used a person in that rural area as a point of delivery for FMCG products. And I think there are probably parallels that one can draw for e-commerce, where a similar pickup point or a similar person who is intermediating that transaction can really bring down that cost and make those deliveries viable. Of course, I think we're still in early days, but it's an interesting time to be around.
Sure. Quite interesting. And I agree. I think the hybrid models, sort of whether partnering with brick and mortar stores, is what's probably changing the situation. Just bringing in Ms. Saptoe here to talk about this from the perspective of Hair Technologies. So from Hair Technologies perspective, I'm sure technology is the backbone driving this, but at the same time, for India, the challenges are quite unique. So just taking your thoughts on this, Ms. Saptoe, how this is carrying out for Hair Technologies.
Sure, Harsh. Thank you very much for the question. So, I mean, we have a lot of customers coming to us. So if, let's say, we acknowledge now that the big bulk of costs from the whole logistics is towards the last mile. And why is that so? Is because there's quite a lot of, let's say, failed deliveries, wrong deliveries as part of it, just a portion of it. Those are some of the difficulties that our customers comes back to us. And it is not just happening in India, rural India or whatsoever. It's happening to a lot of rural areas in any parts of the world. And mainly is because of no proper addressing structure. So what from Hair Technologies is that we want to contribute into this value chain, because we want to provide a data and the convergence of platform together to make this possible. So things like connecting the roads, the coverage, the addressing. And when we know that, like, for example, rural India, there's no proper structure addressing, what are other ways that we can help to collect or correct this information? So a proper form framework we learn from some of our research is that helps. So from the input, we make it more user-friendly, easily available. So we work it out with a lot of our customers, all these 3PLs, 4PLs, and they share with us, when you do e-commerce transaction, the input is as important as when you are about to deliver. And if, let's say, that address is not available, what else can you do? Perhaps a POIs, the nearest POIs, a billboard, a mailbox, or whatsoever can help. And if, let's say, there's no available, let's say, contacts, mobile phone numbers that we can call, perhaps when we work with our customers, when they provide us those geocoding, we'll make sure that the local delivery location is mapped correctly. So these are some of the ways that we want to have a platform that's open for our customers to enrich their location data and maps.
Sure. Thank you. Quite interesting, and I agree. I think there has to be a frugal innovation mindset, especially for a market like India. And again, as I mentioned, 19,000 odd pin codes or zip codes, very diverse challenge everywhere. Most of the value chain players that we interact with mention challenges in terms of optimizing loads. You mentioned about cross-party logistics, third-party logistics kind of models. But there is no return load, and most of them therefore jack up the prices, and it increases the cost to serve, and then that sort of makes the P&L shaky. So very interesting perspective. On that, just shifting gears a little bit to talk about digitization. I think all of us have been at the forefront of digitizing our offerings, more so driven by the pandemic itself. And therefore, just wanted to hear your thoughts on the role of last mile digitization in the post-pandemic growth scenario. Perhaps we can have the same sequence as the last time, starting with Mr. Chhikara. Wanted to know your perspective on digital offerings post-pandemic, and has there been any change in the strategy or acceleration from the market?
See, I think if you look at India as how digital we are as compared to our education levels or infrastructure level or whatever, I look at US and Europe and I look at India. And I see, in spite of all the limitations that we have, India UPI is booming. 4 years back, people said, hey, micro payments, what will happen to micro payments and all that. And today, whether it's my sabji wala or whoever, they all take UPI. And I see that happening. See, one thing is very clear. A lot of people think, and it's a big myth, that, and this is a myth perpetrated by a lot of people, that the farmers out there are poor souls who are just waiting there for somebody to walk in, whether it's a large corporate or somebody to go and take advantage for them. No, education doesn't mean wisdom. In every rural area, the guy may not even have gone to school, but he can look at the sky and say, today is going to rain or it's not going to rain, which a PhD in agri will not be able to do. So I think that's a lot of, and in India, I think that the moment people realize that it is going to benefit them, they're very fast in adapting technology. Look at the way vernacular content and everything is growing. So, and there are this organization, like I was talking to Madan Padki, who runs One Bridge, which is a foundation, or HISA, HESA, which Vamshi runs in Hyderabad. And they have built this whole organization, or Hamdarshak, for example, where they're realizing, ki, boss, they just need to be told the steps. Don't think they are going to be idiots sitting there or they have no clue of the world. Today, boss, FMCG sells maximum in rural. You have cable connections. They watch the same Netflix or Amazon or Hotstar or whatever that we do. So there's no difference that way. They are very intelligent people. But the trust level that they have against the so-called big companies is pretty low. And what I realize is that unless you put in technology, so when you put technology in any sector, it does two things. The first thing it does is it brings in transparency. Things become transparent. That's the whole thing. That's the first thing that technology does. And the second thing a technology does is opens them up, shows them the possibility. So today we realize that trust, which was supposed to be done by this agri department, recruitment and all that, and they do not trust that. But when it comes to new tech, whether somebody said WhatsApp, this thing, UPI, give them a way that their money is safe. I am saying they are not against online payments. The challenge is trust. I don't know who this money is going to. And then there are the serials that they show. I don't know which was that they from that UP place, they call up and do all the scam and all that. So they are worried, So, and I think technology is the only way. Gone are the days when you could go physically meet and do all that. And I'm telling you, rural is ready for tech. Look at the amount of content being consumed. Look at the amount of entertainment content or whatever. If we solve this trust thing, and we have all talked about different ways and means of having a kind of intermediary there. So I trust you, and you trust the company. भैया मैं तो तेरे से बात करूंगा यार. मुझे नहीं पता company का पीछे कौन है. That is the way it is. So there's no other way except technology. As simple as that.
Right. Sure. Also, just extending this from Oracle's perspective, so both in terms of demand and supply side solutions, I'm sure whether it's vernacular content management or whether it's supply chain tailored for rural rural takers, is there any specialized uptake that you've seen in digital services pertinent for rural supply chains, Mr. Kelkar?
Yes, Harshvardhan. So before I answer that, I'll go 12, 13 years back in history and narrate a real life example. And that was, if you ask me, my introduction to the word called digitalization. And it happened to be inside the first nuclear submarine of India, INS Haryant. I happened to work for another company organization then, and the whole challenge at that time for the Indian Navy was all those A0 size drawings of the submarine were to be digitalized into a CAD format. And that was the single biggest challenge in which the company started that time. And I'm talking about 2000, 2007, 2008. And that was my first introduction, if you will, to what is called as digitization. From there till today, the world has changed, and so has the meaning and concept of the word digitization or digitalization. Today, for us in Oracle, the supply chain solutions that I actively engage my customers with, we believe, and this is true for rural, so I will still go ahead with this example. We believe that a digital thread binds everything that forms a part of our end-to-end comprehensive solution. As Anil mentioned today, uh, there are organizations which will take refuge in not doing things because they are not privy to certain informations coming to them. With restricted usage, with adequate security, we have made the whole journey completely open for organizations. So anyone and anybody who is authorized to see what they are allowed to can see the single source of truth that binds everything that goes in the organization, whether you provide services, whether you provide products. And we have several customers who specifically service rural India in terms of the products that they sell, whether it is a FMCG companies or whether it is indeed the pharmaceutical companies where we have active presence. We have seen that the digital thread does away with all that was not possible in the organizations. And I will give you a case in point. And this is not where Oracle has contributed, but to a certain extent we have, because we do similar things in India. I hope all of us have taken our first vaccine, and if you haven't, please go and take it. Vaccination till very good. I see two number there from Anil. Vaccination as a development before this present pandemic hit us was a 7-year development cycle. 7 years with human intelligence and the need to innovate, we got that 7-year cycle down to 11 months. The first vaccine that was made available to us was delivered within 11 months from the time it was conceived. All that I'm saying is that the digitalization has taken different forms in different organizations. Today it is here to stay with all of us, and gone are the days we will find umbrage into trying to do something away from digitalization. Harshvardhan?
Thank you so much, Mr. Kelkar. Makes sense, and I completely agree. I think it's the question is not whether digitization. The question is how soon. So, just taking Mr. Jangra's view here as well. Also, just a quick time check. So we have, I think, about 5 minutes more before we wind up. So over to you, Mr. Jangra.
In last 1 year during COVID pandemic, I get opportunity to stay in village also. And during the last 1 year, in different phases, many of the manufacturing units in the cities were closed, but farms were not closed. Farmers were able to produce, they were able to sell, and you can say Indian economy was saved by agriculture industry. Till some extent, manufacturing unit, that was the loss, but agriculture sector was not in loss. We have a sizable size of agriculture sector in GDP. That is a potential market or buying capacity, or I can say that is a stable market for e-commerce companies. They will always give a stable purchasing power, and any company can plan like this. Urban market is quite unstable. They will vary and they will change every year, depend on economy and depend on different global market conditions. With this, I would say every company should plan it, and there could be small challenges, and people are very smart. The employee, like we all are sitting here, like other people also, they are very smart. They will find a way. Yes, sir.
Thank you, Mr. Jangra. So just taking this to Shreyas as well, and more so because as an e-commerce player, I'm sure there was enough and ample digitization already going before pandemic struck. However, I'm sure in terms of DAU or GMV, it might have shifted, or there might be some skew, if not skew, higher weightage towards the rural. Have we seen such kind of digitization uptake in the rural sector for Meesho, Shreyas?
We have. I mean, I think one of the things that happened is, because of the pandemic, a lot of people were unwilling or afraid to go shop in physical locations, as well as markets were also shut. And equally, I think, from a supply point of view, folks were trying to find different avenues where they could sell their products. And I think both of those factors came together this year to really sort of pump up the volumes in the e-commerce ecosystem. So we don't have a third-party logistics network of our own, right? It's actually, we work with the likes of Delivery, Com Express, what have you. And I think for them, the next the next level of growth will really come from ensuring that they get visibility into all of these nooks and corners of opportunities where they can reduce their cost, and like I mentioned earlier, just make these products a lot more accessible to folks who are willing to buy them. But yeah, I mean, to your original question, I think the last 12 months have seen an almost unprecedented leap into people using products and being open to transacting online.
Got it. Sure. And finally, bringing in Ms. Saptoe here, from Hair Technologies perspective, how has post-pandemic digital acceleration been? And then some perspective from your side on this, please.
Sure. So what we want to make sure is that we break down all these data silos, because when we provide them a platform, an area, a workspace area where they can bring their own data, do data exchange, or even monetizing it for their logistic last mile, that's where more interchangeably information can be done. Definitely together in a trusted open location data centric marketplace, because what we see is that one size fits all, or take it or leave it offering for like software developers and all that is no longer suffice. So when you do digitalization in terms of like IoT or like a cloud platform or cloud applications, you need to look for a platform that enables easy access to external data for these users and allow them to create and integrate all these services together, because it can be then customized to fit the specific business needs.
Right. Makes sense. So with that, I think we are almost nearing the allotted time for the discussion. We have some questions from the audiences as well. I think due to the paucity of time, we might just want to take one or two. So probably this one question we can all attempt and then present our perspective on. So this is from one of the audiences on the extent to which small local retailers are being and should be involved by e-commerce platforms in rural areas for effective last mile delivery. So we've seen the likes of Amazon partnering with brick and mortar stores, kirana shops, etc., as click and collect kind of hybrids. We've seen Taobao, Alibaba, etc., doing this very effectively in China, and there is a case for implementing that in India. So probably bringing in Shreyas here more from a practitioner's perspective. If there are any initiatives which we are doing for partnering for logistics solving.
Partnering with Chinese companies.
No, sorry, partnering with local small retailers who can enable logistics.
Got it. So I think specifically for Meesho, I think we don't directly partner with any of them. But like I mentioned earlier, I think our supply chain partners are continuously looking at opportunities like this. One of the areas where there has been significant development is in e-commerce. There tends to be a lot of seasonal growth in your volumes, and you don't want to build fixed capacity for that. And for those volumes, trying to enlist help of local retailers to try and service those volumes is an area which has seen a fair amount of success. I think the next level would probably be to see if we can use some of these points as probably pickup points or some sort of aggregation points, and try and bring down the cost of distribution even further. But yes, this is actually an area of deep interest, not just for us at Meesho, but I think everyone in e-commerce in general.
Absolutely. So I think Ms. Saptoe also spoke about the POI availability and how better POI data is enabling better solutions. Also bringing in Mr. Chhikara here on this. Your thoughts, please.
So one of my portfolio company called Minkspay, MINKSPAY. Minkspay's model is they go to the small kasbas. They are Goa-based company, and they're very strong in that Goa, Maharashtra, that region. They already have some 15,000-20,000. So what they do is they go to a small kasbah, and every kasbah has that one shop which kind of gives all, So they go and digitize that entire thing. So they give them a tablet, this, that, and how do you enable people to make transactions? And with this comes a software where this local guy uses that software to manage his own cash flows and stuff like that. And that is being used by different companies, not just for e-commerce delivery. It's being used by fintech companies to collect EMIs. Because they're not, you can't go to from the village, you have to catch a bus, then you go to this thing and then you do that. So banking solutions, fintech solutions. So that kind of becomes a point, and they have already successfully done it more than 15,000 people. So this is happening. Yeah, it's pretty logical. The trust issue gets solved by intermediary, as simple as that.
Makes sense. So there is a repository of questions which I have, but unfortunately, due to paucity of time, I think we will have to wrap up the session. My heartfelt thanks to all of you for joining in this interesting discussion, and I hope the audiences certainly will be taking a leaf out of our discussion notebook today. With that, I'll hand it over to the organizers for further discussion on this. Over to you, please.
Thank you so much, Harsh, for making this possible. In fact, thank you so much, everyone, for such an engaging discussion. It is basically giving a special thanks to all of you, to you, Harsh, being the moderator, to the panelists, and of course, our partners who made it possible for this particular session. Thank you so very much. Have a nice day and stay safe. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.